Hey everyone, I've been talking a lot about various Hill House comic book releases, and I have another one for you today. But first, I want to note that I've covered Basket Full of Heads, The Low Woods, and the Dollhouse Family already. There are links to those in the show description if you want to check those out. I'm Deanna Chapman, and today I want to talk to you all about Daphne Byrne, which is one of the latest comics from Hill House, which is an imprint from DC Comics and curated by Joe Hill. This particular comic is written by Laura Marks, and it takes you back to the Victorian era, and it really just gives you a different kind of horror story that we've seen with some of the other Hill House comics so far. The artist on the comic is Kelly Jones, and Kelly does an amazing job of really putting together this Victorian era look, and even all of the demons and creatures that you have that pop up in the comic look absolutely amazing as far as their level of creepiness goes. It's one of those things where you know you're going to get something that looks pretty bizarre, especially for the Victorian era, and it works so well with the story that Laura Marks is telling because you have your main character, who is the titular character, Daphne Byrne. She is the daughter of a widow. Her dad has recently passed away, and her mom is going to basically speak to the father's spirit, going to seances and things like that. So you have that whole sort of spiritual world combining with the demonic world that Daphne is experiencing. And she is a character who is in high school, it seems. She doesn't like going to school, so she takes any chance she can get to not go, but she does run into a few of the other girls she goes to school with, and there's this whole segment there where you kind of see what's going on with Daphne, and I don't wanna give anything away other than some minor plot spoilers here, but as far as the details go, this comic book has so much going for it. You have a great story meshed with great artwork, and I think the coloring is great as well. So the team of Laura Marks and Kelly Jones was sort of the perfect fit for this comic. And while the Victorian era might not be my favorite era ever, simply because I've never really been too interested in period pieces. I don't watch a ton of shows that take place in this same time period. I have recently watched some horror movies that take place in roughly this same era, and there was just something about it that doesn't necessarily grab me right away. But in this comic, it was everything else that was going on. It wasn't about the time period necessarily. You could imagine this sort of demonic presence happening in any time period, and the main character we're looking at on that side of things is a character named Brother, who is not very brotherly, but follows Daphne around wherever she goes. She's the only one who can see him. And it just plays off really well because, other people already think Daphne is weird, and then she starts talking to someone who no one else can see. So it just amplifies that. And I like it when characters have their own unique sort of thing going on, and you can definitely say that about Daphne, to say the least. So, if you're into horror, if you love period pieces, if you enjoy the Victorian era, this is around the time Jack the Ripper was running around, and you have all of this going on in addition to that, pretty much. It's a very interesting horror comic, and it might not be my favorite of the Hill House comics that I've read, but it was still good enough to keep me wanting to read issue after issue. I basically binge read this in one sitting because most of these stories have only been 6 issues, so it's not a lot to read. And this one in particular focuses so much more on the art than on the writing. You'll have some pages where there aren't a ton of words on the page, and that's definitely something that has evolved over the years because when you go back and read comics from the 70s and 80s, they are full of sort of narration and telling you what is happening versus now, where a lot of writers and artists will let you see what's happening more so than just telling you what's happening. Because I think that is when the comic book medium gets to thrive, when they're showing you, not telling you necessarily. And this comic definitely does that. So, again, if you love horror comics, check out Daphne Byrne. It's available now. I'll have a link to buy it in the show notes. This was a pretty quick review here, and I just think Hill House has been doing a lot of really cool things. So I'm sure I'll be talking a little bit more about horror comics in particular in the future. If you like this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It really helps. If you want to check out my podcasts, Welcome to Geekdom and Chat Cemetery, there are links to those in the show description, as well as my social media accounts if you would like to follow me there. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.